Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast.
I'm Rachel Johnson, co-host of the EduGals podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am so excited today to be joined by two guests, Bree and Katie, and I'm going to start out by letting them introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the conversation, which we're going to be talking about something a little bit different than teaching today, about how you can launch your own online program as a teacher, whether you are a full-time teacher, whether you are trying to transition out of the classroom, or whether you're just wanting some side money, on the side of your teaching income. So before we get started, Bree, why don't we start with you? Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll go right to Katie.
Sure. So I am a musician. I'm a wife and mom. I live in California. And one interesting thing I wanted to note is that I am married to a college professor. So I really understand this teacher mentality and, where you guys are coming from as far as just like really having a heart to help people. And what I love about teaching online entrepreneurs or people that are moving into that space is it gives you so much more of a playing field to help more people, if you're teaching locally and stuff. So just that side note before I go into like my background is really as a musician, somebody who built my audience and was performing, singer-songwriter, recording, all that stuff. And then I moved into the online space as my kids got older and they didn't want to be dragged on tour with me. So that was one of my main reasons for going online, is that I didn't want to tour because either I didn't want to be gone when my kids were having like significant stuff going on, like, their gymnastics recitals and their soccer games and all that stuff. I didn't want to miss that. And I really couldn't drag them with me anymore because I was doing that when they were little. And they were like, no, I have a life now. Don't take me away. So I went online and I started teaching musicians how to do what I did, building an audience and really teaching them to be entrepreneurs, which back 7 years ago when I started, that wasn't really much of a thing. And a lot of them didn't realize they were entrepreneurs, which is why I started the podcast, The Female Entrepreneur Musician, because I was educating them on how you can really be an entrepreneur and a business person, how that is actually what you are. If you're going out there and you're performing and you're asking for money for anything, even if it's, CDs or performances, you are an entrepreneur. And so you need to learn to think that way. And, as teachers, like we're not entrepreneurs at the beginning because we're, employees working for someone else, but you like have all these skills that you want to share with other people. And that's where that entrepreneurial bug can kind of come in and get you excited about getting out there and branching out. So I teach musicians how to market themselves, how to think like businesses, and how to actually make money from what they're doing.
Awesome. Well, that's so awesome. I love hearing about your story. And I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. I was an elementary music teacher. And then the entrepreneurial bug hit me. And same, what drove me starting 5.5 years ago. But it was same. It was my passion for wanting to help people and wanting to get out there and do it. Even if I didn't know what I was doing at first, but I was like, I know, and I need to do this. I don't know how. And yeah, being a mom, being able to have the flexibility. I have 3 boys. I've been able to go to their things and not having to, kind of setting my own schedule. It's been really nice. So I love hearing your story. Katie, tell us all about you. I'm excited to hear more about your story and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, so I'm Katie. I coach musicians and music entrepreneurs to grow their businesses and bank accounts. So I don't have kids. I do have a dog now who's super demanding. But I really just, like, I also was a musician growing up. I worked in music publishing for a little while, and I actually started my coaching career as a wellness coach. I had known since before I graduated college that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do at that time. So I ended up working in the music industry while balancing so many other things. And if any of the listeners here are musicians as well as music teachers, which I'm sure pretty much all of them are, it's hard sometimes when you feel like you have like your passion project and then your day job and then the other day job to make more money and then the other day job, and you're just like stacking things upon things. And especially in music, there's an emphasis on networking. So it's like the more you can get your hands in and the more people you can meet, the faster you'll grow. But that came with a lot of burnout and stress for me, and I had to figure out personally how to work through that. And then I realized there were a lot of musicians who were going through the same exact thing. So I had done my yoga teacher training. I had, again, figured out how to utilize these tools with very little support in the music industry to be able to set boundaries for myself and come out of that burnout and still be able to have a life and make money and do the things I loved. And once I started working with clients on the wellness side, strategy would always sort of come up. Like once they felt really good, we'd have time left in our program session together and we'd talk strategy. So over the years, it's kind of pivoted to have an emphasis on both. So the approach that I take with my clients, whether you are a musician, whether you are a music coach, or both, because honestly, most of my clients and even Bree and I's clients inside of the program we have out to launch do both. Like they are musicians and they are coaches. And so it's all about having the strategy so that you can get ahead faster while also minding your mindset and your wellness so that you're not burnt out and you're overcoming any major blocks that are holding you back along the way so that you can truly thrive.
Awesome. I love that. So the audience of this podcast is elementary music teachers, but my listeners know I have recorded episodes, let's say like 80% about teaching, but we've been doing a lot more edupreneur, which is what teacherpreneur, edupreneur is a phrase that I don't know, a word that people say, but basically it's an entrepreneur. And we've been doing a lot more episodes around that. And when I do coaching for teachers wanting to start an online business as well, the same mindset blocks come up, the same, how can I do this? I don't have a business background. I don't know how to grow on social media and things like that. And so teachers wanting to put their insert whatever it is into the world, it can be a little intimidating if they've never done it before, because I know one of the biggest problems, and this is what I still face sometimes, is imposter syndrome comes up. So when a teacher is dealing with imposter syndrome, Katie, why don't we just start with you? What advice do you have for them around that topic?
It's such a good question because I think everyone deals with it. I still deal with it. Like every time you up level, every time you go to do something new, you're going to be faced with it. So the first piece of advice I can give is know that you're not alone, and it's normal to feel these feelings, but it doesn't define you. So I think that when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's usually coming from a place of comparisonitis. Now, sometimes it's just like self-confidence, but sometimes it's comparisonitis. So I always like to take kind of like the practical side and then also just the pep talk, more mindset-based side. And the practical side of imposter syndrome is like, be truly honest with yourself. Are you having imposter syndrome because you're like actually not qualified to do something? Now, very rarely is that the case, but it is true that sometimes we sign up for something or we go to do something and we maybe don't feel well versed in the tech, or we just want to practice a little bit more, or we want to take a couple more classes so that we're really feeling confident about our skills. So there's like a practicality, but also a confidence of like, if you don't feel confident with your skill, maybe it's working on that skill a little bit more so that you can feel confident teaching it. Usually people are really, really good at it, but what happens is they just see other people doing it, or they wonder like, am I special enough, or what's gonna differentiate me amongst all the other people? So that's where I think boundaries are really important. Like if you do notice yourself comparing to people, mute them on socials, or, you know, do what you've got to do to just sort of like fine tune your space and be able to focus on yourself. And with that, I highly recommend either working with a coach or just, you know, implementing some exercises. It can be as simple as journaling, but journaling through, like, when the feelings come up of imposter syndrome, taking note, what is really behind this? Like, what am I really feeling right now? What's the trigger? And what's the truth behind the situation? I remember when I first got on TikTok, I had been a coach for years, and I had been on TikTok for like years, or like a year at least. But I started a new account and I was like, okay, this time I'm really going to go for it. I'm really going to do it. And I got on, and unlike the first time, I had really started to curate my feed to be music industry based. Just for reference, my other account, which was my old account, is basically filled with astrology and Marvel videos. Like, I don't ask me how we got there. It's a lot of Chris Evans, but
that's awesome.
So I'm fine tuning my TikTok algorithm to show me a bunch of music videos, and as soon as I got there, I'm realizing, oh man, there's a lot of music industry coaches on here, or musicians giving out advice. And I had a moment where I was like, wait, am I going to be able to like make it? Am I going to be able to do this? And it was just a second, but I caught myself and realized that, number one, the thought was happening, and that really what was behind it was just a little bit of fear of something new. I had not created videos that had gained traction before. I was still getting clear on my strategy. And so, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, but I really just gave myself some grace to notice what was coming up and notice that instead of comparing myself to the videos I was seeing, I had an opportunity to take inspiration from these people, or if I needed to, set the boundary and say, I'm actually going to like mute or block this follower because it's getting in the way of my creativity and keeping me stuck instead. So again, notice where the thought's coming from, and then do what you need to do, whether it is boundaries, whether it's changing the thought pattern, anything like that, any other things you think you will serve you, so that you can really hone in on your own creativity, your own expertise, and what you want to say, and not get bogged down by the noise that's around you.
Oh, that's perfect. Bree, you and I have had this conversation. Doing your market research, knowing what's out there, you know, but at the same time being yourself. And I am so glad I heard that advice, because I felt stuck. Like, oh my gosh, this person already wrote this blog post about this, so I can't do it. But no, it's my voice. It was my words, my opinions, my viewpoint on the thing. So Bree, I want to ask you, those teachers that do have that stirring in their heart, that is, it could be a book, membership site, course, product, teacher pay teacher product, Etsy store, whatever the thing is, but they are just like, I don't know how to get started. Like, I know I have the thing, but I'm just scared to put it into the world because of maybe what others think of me, or maybe they won't think it's good enough. What advice do you give to anyone you're working with that has those kind of thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about this in relation to imposter syndrome, because, you know, teachers are working within a system, right? So they never have to like go out there on their own and be like, okay, I've got this thing. Do you want help with it? Do you want to have me help you with this? It's like, you know, you're put into the system, you have this classroom, and you work within that. And it hasn't really allowed you to think about what you're already doing that differentiates you. So you have developed over years a way of teaching that is different from other people, or things that have worked for you in the classroom that, you know, you've just developed over time. I know when I talked to Jessica and like how she transitioned out of the classroom, you know, she like basically was thrown in there with like nothing, and she had to develop all this stuff. And she could have just been like, oh, well, you know, this was just for this classroom. This might not work for other people. But, you know, you have worked really hard to develop this system that's worked for the students that you have. And so really sitting down and thinking about, okay, what is my system? What is my method of how I teach? And how can this get results for people beyond where I'm already teaching people? Because I think we get stuck in this like, well, I just do this on the fly because I'm in the classroom and I see where people need help and I help them, but we're not really sitting down and thinking about I've really developed a system over the years that I know works. When I see someone getting frustrated in this way, I help them in this way to get them back on track. And so usually we recommend that people just like sit down with either like sticky note, like you can do like a whiteboard, you can do sticky notes. I like to do a Google Doc because it's really easy to like cut and paste and move things around, but like sticky notes are like that too. But I'm more of a digital person. Some people are more of a tactile, in space kind of person when they're thinking. And just write down every single thing that you do in relation to, teaching the students in the way that you teach them, big or small, and then kind of organize them into a way that makes sense, kind of like a flow or an outline of like, well, first I teach them this, and then I teach them this, and it will give you so much confidence of like, wow, I really do have something that helps people. But if we don't like sit down and organize that into a system, then we just kind of think that like it's all random ideas and they have to come out on the fly, and therefore I don't have anything that I could package up and sell somewhere else. And this, like you said, this applies to things like Teachers Pay Teachers and Etsy and stuff like that, where you can develop a thing that's worked for you and sell it to somebody else, and it could totally help their classroom or them as well. You just haven't really gone beyond that first step of like, I just created this thing out of desperation because I knew that, it could help my people right now.
Absolutely.
And to actually add something off of that, I think it's really important that something we see at the beginning when people first have the idea, and it comes up again in the sales process, is that it's like, I feel uncomfortable talking about me. And so like the initial imposter syndrome is usually like, I don't know if people want this. I don't know if people are going to like what I have to say and what I'm being coached. And then in the sales, again, it's like, I feel bad just going out there and being like, buy my thing. And so the biggest mindset frame you can make is it's not about you. When you're a teacher working for a school, it's easy to make it not about you, because it's like, I work for the school. These are my students. They just go to school. I'm kind of like the middleman, and I can be me. I can embrace what I have to teach, but it feels like there's less strings attached to you being like the focal point. And it can feel that when you become an entrepreneur, when you do your own thing, that it's like you. Sure, it is to an extent, but when you make the reframe that what you're doing is serving other people and it's for them, they need your program. They need to be taught by you. They need what you have to offer, not that you're trying to beg them to work with you or like convincing people that you've got credibility. It totally changes the game.
One, and I can't remember who said this now, but I don't know if you ladies have heard this, and I'm sure you give this advice, but someone I followed or heard or a podcast, I don't know where, but you just need to be one step ahead of the people you're helping. When I heard that, I was kind of mind blown, because I was like, oh, I mean, I guess that's true in a way. I mean, for some extent, you know what I mean? But I think that's honestly, from teachers I talk to, some of the holdback is they think they need to have the right credentials, the right degree, the right years of experience, or whatever it might be. And sometimes that's the case, depending on what the situation is, but sometimes it's not. It's just, you have this thing. And maybe the other pushback I've heard actually is the fact that, oh, but everybody else is already doing that too. Or they already teach those songs, or they already lesson plan like I do. So if I share that idea, they're not going to need it because they're already doing that too. But it's not true. My simplest lead magnet to this day is 5 things to know as a new elementary music teacher. 5 steps, little bit of information under each step, one simple PDF I created, and it just keeps getting downloaded. And I was like, who's going to need this? It's just 5 little tips. And it's like, okay, maybe, but I'm so glad I didn't say nobody needs that. Why do I not try? I just said, let me see how this goes. And that's where I feel like sometimes the fear comes from is, like I said, A, I'm not expert enough, or B, nobody's going to want this because they already know this information anyway. So what's the point? So I don't know. Do either of you want to touch on any? I know that was like 2 things in one, but
I think that you're right about, there's a lot of information out there. And so people think, well, couldn't people just Google this? Couldn't people just YouTube it? But first of all, you are saving them tons of time and money because you're packaging it up in a system. Like I talked earlier about a system, right? A step-by-step system. I'm all about that. Because think of all the time that they would have to waste like Googling and watching YouTube videos. And then you get things that are like contradictory, right? You watch one that says do this and then one that says do this, and they kind of contradict each other, and you just get more confused and overwhelmed, and then you don't do anything. So I'm a big fan. I always invest in like cutting my learning curve, right? Yes, I could spend 2 weeks trying to learn how to do this thing. And, I could like watch all, like, for example, let's talk about TikTok, because I'm kind of learning how to do it, right? I could go and watch all these videos, and I could sit there and watch TikToks and try to analyze what makes them good. Or I could just go take a course from Katie, who's like packaged this all together into an understandable way that I could learn quickly. Like, how can I stand out on TikTok? What, there's no reason for me to waste that time.
Yeah.
And so all of us, I think, have something that we can create that's going to give people the transformation that they need to go from, A to F, let's say, not all the way to Z probably, because that's too much. We don't want to overwhelm people. And that's where you were talking earlier about like thinking you need to be an expert, or thinking that you need to like have all this certifications and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if you tried to give them everything that you knew all at once, they would just get overwhelmed and be like, oh, I can't possibly do this. And they'd give up. So you have to give them very, small, bite-sized, tangible things that they can learn from here to here, but not all the way from here to like expert. So that's actually a good thing, because then we don't need to be that person that's going to take them from A to Z. We just take them from A to F and feel really good about the fact that they jumped from A to F in such a shorter amount of time than they would have.
That's good. That's good. Katie, I know you guys told me that you are just really good at growing organic social media presence. So I want to ask you just any strategies you have around that. But one thing that I know has worked for me well is just being myself. Remember when I was trying to do what everybody else was doing, and it was just very rigid, and like, not that there's anything wrong with that. I think there's a fine balance between the two. From what I've seen for myself is sometimes I share like a good quote, and other times it's like me just being silly and my personality comes out. And I feel like, I don't know, do you feel like that is what works? It's just being your authentic self and connecting with others. Of course, there's other strategy behind it, but what advice do you have around growing a social media presence?
Totally. Yeah. So I have systematized this like to the nth degree in my brain and in a program that I have, and there's a lot of strategy, right? And there's different types of content you can use, and here's how to create your brand pillars. And I do all that, and I think all that's important, but I'm going to give like 2 to 3 main things that I think really are the juice of it. The first, I'll actually just throw this out there. The first is like, get where your audience is, and also get where you can grow. When it comes to organic growth, not every platform is really suitable for that anymore. Personally, I love TikTok for organic growth specifically, because I feel like the algorithm's really good at getting you where you want to go, getting you in front of your ideal audience. And there's so much potential there to reach a cold audience and turn them into a warm audience really quickly. So I personally love TikTok. If you're someone out there who's thinking, I'm a teacher or I'm older and it's just like dancing teenagers, it's totally not the app for me. I really encourage you to just like get on it and explore. And I promise that you might see some dancing teenagers or like people jumping on bridges at first, but once you start interacting, you will start to see that everyone is on this app. It is truly for everyone. And you can do what you got to do on there. But that being said, also know where your audience is at. Because again, if you're on TikTok, but your audience is like, a bunch of, let's just say like older women who are like, in retirement and they're spending all their time on Facebook. Okay. Probably they're not all on TikTok. So right. Be where your audience is, but also be willing to explore some new things. And then the second is like, we're in the age of personal brand. So to your point about being yourself, it is really important that people know you. Right. This has been shifting over the last several years. And I even think looking back to like 3 years ago, how people used to operate on Instagram, things are a lot different now in terms of what audiences gravitate towards. And quickness and realness and, not being super polished and not being a perfectionist it's in right now. Like, I don't know if it'll fade out again. I hope it doesn't, because I really love the realness that people are favoring, but they truly are favoring that vulnerability and personal brand. And what personal brand really means is that it's not just like you are business. It's really that we know you. Not only do we want to learn from you because of the knowledge that you have and the way you teach it, but also because of your personality and who you are as a person, and even some of the other interests that you might have. You know, if I'm a Marvel fan and you're a Marvel fan and I talk about it every so often, we're going to connect on that. So those elements in your content and on your platform really help to create relationships with your audience. And we know, you've probably heard know, like, and trust factor before, but that's where it's really important to get your audience from just random people following you to invested in you to buying your programs and actually working with you. So that's like I know that was kind of a lot already. I'll just leave it there for now, but those are really the two big things. Definitely don't be afraid to say what you want to say. The last thing I'll add is experiment with how you want to say it. So as a creator, as a coach, just as a person, I really look at things through the lens of how do I like to do this as a consumer first. So if I'm thinking about showing up on social media, there's a lot of coaches who tell you do this, do that, do that. But how do you like to consume? What videos do you like? What do you notice in your patterns? What do you notice you gravitate towards or get the ick from? Like, you can start to observe that and then integrate that into your own content, your own voice, and allow that to help inform how you create content instead of just trying to copy someone else. Like, I know there's a couple of voice teachers who have built pretty big platforms online and on TikTok by doing like voice teacher reacts videos. And I remember I had a client, and I've spoken to a couple of people who are voice teachers who feel like they have to do that. Like, that's like the only roadmap to success as a voice teacher. Like, you gotta do it and you gotta add your input, and like voice teacher reacts, like that's the way to do it. But it's not. Ultimately, if you don't feel in alignment with the content you're creating, it's not going to perform well. So that's the biggest thing, is like really feel good about what you're doing. Don't force yourself to do or be something else.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, those are such great tips. Thank you so much for sharing that. Bree, I want to ask you, in the beginning of this episode, I mentioned pretty fast, but about different ways teachers can create products or different things they can offer into the world, but I really kind of glanced over it. So I would love for you to just give some examples of online programs elementary music teachers might be interested in starting, or different products or services they could put into the world that they might benefit from.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that most of them already know about Teachers Pay Teachers, and I think that's a very valuable place to start. I have a lot of friends who are teacherpreneurs, and they start out with that, and then they move into programs. And so they kind of always have that going on the side. But I've had friends who've moved into a membership. So what they've done is like, they actually take the resources that they provide in Teachers Pay Teachers and take certain specific kinds of those and put them into a membership. And so then they provide them month over month, kind of like what you do, Jessica, right? Where you're providing them with new monthly resources in the membership of lesson plans and activities and things like that they can do with a specific kind of student. I know this one particular person works with autistic students, or like, then there's other ones that, work with writing, or so, being very specific in what kind of thing that you teach. Obviously we're talking about music here, so we can be talking about specific instruments, or ways of teaching music. So a membership is another way. If you were going to provide resources like that, you could literally do one-on-one coaching or group coaching if you wanted to teach other teachers how to do things online, if you had already learned, or if you wanted to take teachers that work in the classroom and work with them specifically on how to implement certain curriculums, or, how to, for example, my friend, she's the creator of the Singing Straw. And you could, if you used that as one of your props to help people learn how to sing, you could teach people how to utilize the Singing Straw in your classroom. So just getting really specific on things that you enjoy teaching, that you have seen results with, and that you think other people would want to do them. And, you could create a course, you could create like a hybrid where it was a course that had coaching along with it. So there's like endless ways. It depends on, the personality that you have, how deep you want to get with people. If you want to just kind of package up your method into a course and sell it as a self-paced, or you could have a course that had, some support that went along with it. Maybe you had a monthly coaching call, or you could go, a lot deeper if you were teaching more specific, like hands-on stuff that related to voice or instruments, where you really needed to work with people one-on-one in like a physical setting, like a Zoom, where you could see what they were doing. I also have we've had other students who have offered like support through something like Loom or other, kind of apps that you can use to send videos back and forth. So you can, if you need to see like how they're doing the thing and give them some kind of feedback, if you didn't want to have to show up live with them. So there's so many like cool ways that you can work with people online, just based upon your personality and how much you want to work directly with the students.
That's good. Yeah. And I just think teachers don't know that there's all those options you just mentioned out there and available. And a lot of it goes back to what we talked about earlier, knowing your personality, knowing what's the right fit for you. And the other thing I want to say is nothing's ever set in stone. So if you start out doing a certain thing and it's just not in alignment with you, you can shift and pivot. And that's the cool thing about having an online business. So Bree, while I have you, I know you two ladies have developed this program for people wanting to get help in their online businesses. And so why don't you talk to us a little bit, Bree, about the program you two started?
Sure. The program is called Out to Launch, and we both started it really organically through working with other music entrepreneurs and seeing that they wanted to go in this direction, but they really didn't have a clue how to do it, or they felt really uncomfortable, like we were talking about earlier, about putting themselves out there and creating a program. And so we have a very step-by-step way of them learning how to create their offer, and then knowing how to communicate that through what we call the tangible transformation, creating their method, so all the bones of their program. And then we teach them how to, as we say in the online world, launch it out to the world and bring people into the program. So it's a whole marketing system that's around organic social media. And so we're not teaching like Facebook ads and like really high level complicated stuff, because in my opinion, we need to get a successful launch first organically before you want to invest money in, Facebook ads. So if any of you guys have heard, if you've been online at all and you've heard people talk about, oh, well, I just spent all this money on ads and got all these students, but you don't want to do that until you know that your launching system works. So we help you develop, your timeline for your launch and how you're going to warm up your audience and how you're going to really let them understand like what you teach through a live event of some kind for the launch. Maybe it's a workshop or a challenge or something, so they can really see how you work and if you're somebody that they want to work with. And then it's super organic from there, whether they want to join the program. It's not this like high pressure sales kind of thing. We teach you how to bake that in along the way. So it's just a natural like next step for students to work with you. So the program is called Out to Launch, and we're actually have been working with students for the past year in this program and really enjoying people like launching all kinds of different things. Like this time we have a lady that teaches people how to do like high end, I don't know how you call this, but whistling. Like as almost like an instrument
whistling.
Experience. Advanced
whistling. Like really cool whistling as almost like an instrument in itself.
That's awesome.
We've had instrumentalists who wanted to teach more students. We've had people that had a voice studio locally and then wanted to expand and scale that out because they were totally booked out. We've had people that want to teach people how to like combine speaking with their music stuff. So we've had like a really diverse groups of people. And it's been really fun to see them just step into their own, like we said earlier, and be like, yeah, I really do have something to offer the market.
That's really cool. Katie, do you have any advice that maybe we didn't cover, or anything we didn't touch on that you want to share with the audience today?
Yeah, I would say don't wait. So I got a message today from someone who was going to join our last round about to launch, and she's like, at the time she didn't join it, she was thinking, I'm just going to keep trying to do it myself, or I'm not going to get support and that kind of thing. And she was like, it's not working, I need help. And we're not running this program ongoingly. It's cohort based, so it's only open when it's open. And, not to say that it's just in relation to this program, but just in general, like whatever it is you want to do, don't wait. It's always easy to keep making excuses. Let me just try to do it myself. Let me just procrastinate. I'll do it next year. I'll do what I really want to do later. Like eventually the time will come. The time is now. If you're craving to do something, again, whether that means getting support to do it or literally just starting to do it on your own and taking that first step towards it, don't wait. Go do it now. If you are really feeling compelled that your next step is out there for you and that you're wanting to add something new or create some change in your life, just do it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Oh, there's so many things that can hold you back. You guys, I started a business when I had a baby, a toddler, and a preschooler. Okay. So, I mean, every excuse in the world you could think of, like, I can't do this too much. It was chaotic, but I'm so glad because
you did it.
Launched into the messy middle of all that. And now it's like, okay. So yeah, exactly. There's always going to be something. There really is. It's hard. And then I also know the other thing that you ladies probably both have heard, and this was not in our notes today, but I have a full-time job. How can I start a business if I have a full-time job? There's no hours left in the day. Like, I don't know. Either of you have any advice around that?
I have sort of bad, sort of good advice. My bad advice, because I was such a bad employee. Well, yeah. I was a good employee. I would finish all my work so fast, and I was really good at it. Like, that I would end up having extra time at work usually to brainstorm up other ideas. But even still, given that at the time I was working like a million different jobs, I had to get really savvy at time management. And I'd say the biggest tools are like, honor your boundaries. Definitely don't work at work because it's like not a good thing to do. But honor your boundaries. Like, can you escape for lunch and go have lunch outside somewhere and have some time to yourself to decompress and then maybe do a little bit of brainstorming? And same with after work or before work. If you have families or even just a partner, you might feel obligated, or even just friends. Oftentimes we just feel obligated by people or things around us to always be doing and going and entertaining and showing up for that person. But like, you have the right to take time for yourself, especially in the beginning stage of your business. Don't be afraid to tell the people around you who you love and who love you that you need an hour or 2 hours, each evening or on the weekends or whatever it is, to just focus in so that you can make progress. They will understand, but oftentimes we need to vocalize those boundaries and expectations so that they uphold it and you uphold it as well. And I also use batch working as a tool still in my business to kind of get things done. So like, let's say you want to start with a podcast. Well, put something out there, take a weekend, batch record a bunch, and then there you go. You don't have to be constantly like chasing the rabbit or whatever that phrase is. Yeah. And feel like you're always catching up and behind and everything.
Right.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, for those who are parents, I that's really good advice to like speak up, like speak to your spouse, let them really understand what your dream is and where you want to go, and find those times where it's like, hey, could you take the kids for 2 hours so I could spend time working on this side project, this business that I really want to start. And I know when my kids were little, I had to give myself permission to like take a little bit of a budget and pay for some babysitting. So I had the time and space to really, focus on what I needed to do, whether it was recording my album or starting my business or doing my podcast, because I had small kids when I started all of that. And you're investing in yourself. And it is so worth it to spend a little bit of money if you need to, for a babysitter or whatever you need, or, a hotel once a month to like go overnight and just have like a retreat with yourself to really get to hone in on what this dream and this business is that you want to do.
I'm not even lying. The other day I said that to my husband. I need a night at a hotel by myself. He kind of looked at me like,
gotta have it.
Yeah, so I haven't made it happen yet, but man, you reminded me right now that definitely is going to be on the calendar soon. So ladies, before we go, tell everybody where we can find you online. How can others connect with you after this interview today?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly when this is going to air. So what I'll say is you can connect with me on Instagram at Katie Zaccardi and on TikTok, katie.zaccardi. And for all Out to Launch related info, you can go to katiezaccardi.com/out to launch or katiezaccardi.com/out to launch waitlist to get on the waitlist. Both will send you to the waitlist, but to get on the waitlist. And that's where we'll send you all information about the course, when it's opening again, and the trainings. We usually do either a workshop or even we're brainstorming up a summit for the next time we launch. So you'll get all of the juicy information for that.
Perfect. And Bree, where can everybody connect with you?
Definitely. Best place is Profitable Musician LLC on Instagram. And send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you if you're in that position where you're thinking like, I have this idea. Do you think this makes sense for, turning it into a side business or a dream full business? Just let me know what you're thinking. I'd love to hear from you, and we can maybe do a little brainstorming, and then you can come and join in our next event and really put some of that into action.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for coming on. This has been a very helpful episode, and I'm so excited for everybody to listen in.
It's been great. Thanks so much.
Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook Group. Come on over and join us there, where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.